Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing linear discriminant analysis. So discriminant analysis is basically a supervised learning technique. So there are two types of discriminant analysis, linear and quadratic. So we'll be starting with linear. And we will start with the simple case where we have only two populations. Major assumption for discriminant analysis is normality of the underlying population. Okay, so we want all the underlying populations to be multivariate normal, then only we can proceed with the theory that we are developing today. Of course, if the populations are not normal and if you know the distribution, you can develop theory on the similar lines. Okay, but the standard discriminant analysis is based on multivariate normal data. So let me try to first explain the concept. So for the sake of simplicity, let me consider that I have univariate normal populations. Okay, so that I can draw pictures. So I have first univariate normal population with mean mu1 and variance sigma square, and P2 is second population with mean mu2 and variance sigma square. So another assumption of discriminant analysis is the underlying populations are supposed to have equal variances. Okay. Now, so let me draw the pictures. Suppose this is somewhere here I have mu1 and the normal graph bell-shaped normal curve for the first population looks something like this. Assume that this is bell-shaped and symmetric. Okay. And suppose mu2 is somewhere here and the graph for mu2 is something like this. Again assume that this is bell-shaped and symmetric. Okay. Now you have to decide when a new observation X comes, where is it coming from? Is it coming from population 1 or population 2? What would be your intuitive rule? See, if X is somewhere here, means to the left of mu1, then we know that probability of X being from population 1 is more. So of course we are more likely to classify it to population 1. Similarly, if X is somewhere here, then probability of it having come from population 2 is more. So we are more likely to classify it to population 2. Okay. So we can have maybe something like this as a cutoff, because at this point there is a change, means up to this point the red curve is below the blue curve, so probability under population 1 is more, whereas after this point probability under population 2 is more. So this can be like a cutoff. So if X is below this, it's more likely to have come from population 1. If X is above this, it's more likely to have come from population 2. So this is actually how discriminant analysis works. It's as simple as that. Okay. The only thing is, here we took this C as exactly the point at which the transition takes place, means at which the curves change their positions. However, sometimes depending on which type of error is more serious, you might want to change this a bit. Means if misclassifying an observation from population 1 to population 2 is more serious, then in that case you may want to give slightly more benefit of doubt and keep an observation in population 1 maybe even till this point. Okay, and this can be your new cutoff. Okay, so in general we will say that if f1 is greater than k times f2, where this k is to be chosen appropriately depending on misclassification seriousness, then we can assign X to population 1. F1, F2 are of course PDFs. Okay. So if k is equal to 1, we are kind of assuming that both the misclassification probabilities are equally serious. Okay. So now this is the concept. So I hope the concept is clear to you. We'll now turn to the derivation in the multivariate setup. So let x1, x2, xn1 are coming from np mu1 sigma, and y1, y2, yn2 are coming from np mu2 sigma. So what are my assumptions? Of course, major thing is mu1 should not be equal to mu2, otherwise I can't classify. And the two populations are multivariate normal and they have common variance, covariance matrix. Okay. And my job is that given a new observation Z, I want to classify it to one of these two populations. Okay. So as I said, we start by saying assign Z to population 1 if F1 at Z is greater than K times F2 at Z. Okay. This is an intuitively appealing thing. We are just saying probability under which population is more. Okay. Technically this is like marginal probability. Technically this is like conditional probability. So probability of Z coming from population 1 given that Z has this value. So if our prior probabilities are different, then also things will change. But we'll talk about prior probabilities later. Right now just focus on these probabilities. So we will assign Z to population 1 if F1Z is greater than K times F2Z. So let me write down what is F1Z and what is F2Z. Okay, so F1Z and F2Z are multivariate normal PDFs. We know that sigma is common in both these populations. So the part with 2 pi and sigma is anyway going to get cancelled from both the sides. So we will focus only on the exponential part. So e raised to minus half Z minus mu1 prime sigma inverse Z minus mu1. This should be greater than K times e raised to minus half Z minus mu2 prime sigma inverse Z minus mu2. Okay, if this happens, then we will assign Z to population 1. That's what we are saying. Okay. So if I take log on both the sides, I will be left with minus half Z minus mu1 prime sigma inverse Z minus mu1 should be greater than log K plus, actually minus half Z minus mu2 prime sigma inverse Z minus mu2. Okay. Then if we shift this thing to left side, I will be left with Z minus mu2 prime sigma inverse Z minus mu2 minus Z minus mu1 prime sigma inverse Z minus mu1 should be greater than half. I can take common and shift it to this side. So 2 log K. So 2 log K let me call as C. Okay. 2 log K let me call as C. So if this difference is greater than C, then we do something. Okay. Let me try to see if I can cancel few terms or maybe combine few terms. So we have Z prime sigma inverse Z minus Z prime sigma inverse mu2 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse Z plus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu2 coming from this first expansion, then minus Z prime sigma inverse Z minus Z prime sigma inverse mu1 minus mu1 prime sigma inverse Z plus mu1 prime sigma inverse mu1. So this should be greater than C. Okay. Can I cancel something? Yes, this Z prime sigma inverse Z will get cancelled with this, and these two terms and these two terms. Can I combine? So Z prime sigma inverse mu2, if you check the order, Z prime is 1 cross P, P cross P, p cross 1. So this is a scalar. There is also a scalar. And these are transposes of each other. Mu 2 prime sigma inverse z whole transpose is z prime sigma inverse mu 2. And if they are scalars and transposes of each other, they are basically same. So I have minus 2 times mu 2 prime sigma inverse z plus mu 2 prime sigma inverse mu 2. Then same logic I can apply to these two terms. So plus 2 times mu 1 prime sigma inverse z minus mu 1 prime sigma inverse mu 1 should be greater than C. Okay. What does it mean? It means if I rearrange the terms again, if I take 2 common and I have mu 1 prime minus mu 2 prime sigma inverse z, okay, plus mu 2 prime sigma inverse mu 2 minus mu 1 prime sigma inverse mu 1 should be greater than C. Okay. Okay so far. So this can also be written as mu 1 prime minus mu 2 prime sigma inverse z plus half mu 2 prime sigma inverse mu 2 minus mu 1 prime sigma inverse mu 1 should be greater than C prime, where C prime is C by half. Okay. And actually this is also constant. The only thing that depends on the new observation is the first term. This is also a constant. So I can shift it to right side again. So I can say sigma inverse z if this is greater than C prime minus this thing. So C prime, the signs would be opposite. So C prime plus half mu 1 prime sigma inverse mu 1 minus mu 2 prime sigma inverse mu 2. Okay. So if this happens, then we are going to assign f to first population. So I can call this constant as say k1, entire thing. Now just for the case of simplicity, let delta be defined as sigma inverse mu 1 minus mu 2. Okay. So if delta is defined as this, then mu 1 prime minus mu 2 prime sigma inverse z could be written as delta prime z. Okay. Prime of sigma inverse mu 1 minus mu 2 would be mu 1 prime minus mu 2 prime sigma inverse z. So this delta prime z is actually known as Fisher's discriminant function. So my final rule is based on Fisher's discriminant function. And this does make some sense. See, we are taking difference between the two populations and we are scaling that difference by the common variance. Okay. So my rule should depend on it. So this is Fisher's discriminant function. But so my final conclusion is we assign the new observation z to population 1 if delta prime z is greater than k1, and we assign it to population 2 otherwise. Now the key question still remains, what is k1? Because we have not derived it yet. So unless we derive k1, it is of no use. This part, like part of k1 we know, but what about c? C we don't know, c prime we don't know. Okay. So now we will say, but another equivalent rule can be given by, keeping this constant that we shifted to right side to left side. Okay, this constant. And we can actually try to slightly rearrange this constant to make things, better, means to get things in a familiar format. So what is that constant? Mu1 prime sigma inverse mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu2. Let me write that down. So the constant that we have is mu1 prime sigma inverse mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu2 when it is to the right side. So actually when it is to the left side, it is mu2 prime sigma inverse mu2 minus mu1 prime sigma inverse mu1. So let me consider that form. So can I try to write this in some other form? Okay, so I have mu1 prime sigma inverse mu1. Let me add and subtract mu1 prime sigma inverse mu2, mu1 prime sigma inverse mu2. Does it make things different? Now these are, everything is scalar, so the middle two terms can actually be written as transposes of each other. So I can write this as mu2 prime sigma inverse mu1 plus this I will keep as mu1 prime sigma inverse mu2 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu2. So here from the first two terms, if I take mu1 common, I am left with, so from first two terms if I take sigma inverse mu1 common, I am left with mu1 prime minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu1 plus from here I will have mu1 prime minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu2. So this is basically same as mu1 prime minus mu2 prime sigma inverse, if I take common, mu1 plus mu2. Okay, so we have mu1 minus mu2 whole prime sigma inverse mu1 plus mu2. Okay, the constant can be rearranged as this, and let us try to write in that form. So what I have is this delta prime z minus half of the constant that we wrote just now. So let me define it as uz. So uz is delta prime z minus half mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu1 plus mu2. Okay, so if this is my uz, my criterion can be uz greater than c, then assigned c1 I think, then assigned to population 1. Okay, notation doesn't matter, c1, c whatever. So now I have to derive what is the value of c1. So for that we are going to decide it on the basis of seriousness of misclassifications. So if we consider that both the types of misclassifications are equally serious, then we don't want to we don't want to give any preference. So in that case, both the misclassification probabilities can be forced to be equal. See, misclassification probabilities are like type 1 and type 2 errors. If you try to decrease one, the second one is bound to increase. So minimizing both of them together is directly not possible. So what we do is we keep them equal and then try to minimize that equal value. Now what would be misclassification? When would misclassification occurs? There are two types. So type 1 misclassification I can define as, let's say Z actually comes from second population, but uz turns out to be greater than C1. So we end up classifying Z in population 1. And the type 2 misclassification we can say is Z actually coming from first population, but uz turns out to be less than C1 or equal to Anyway, it's continuous distribution, so equality we can include anywhere. And we end up classifying it to population 2. So if I want probabilities of these two types of misclassification errors, then I need to know distribution of uz. uz is a linear function of z, and we know that z is multivariate normal. So under the type 1 setup means if z is coming from mu2 sigma, what is the distribution of uz? So since it's linear function, it's going to be normal with some mean and some variance. We need to compute these values. So expectation of uz would be delta prime mu2 minus half mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu1 plus mu2, because delta prime z will have normal distribution with mean delta prime mu2. Now what is delta? Delta is mu1 minus mu2 whole prime sigma inverse, then I have mu2 coming from here, minus half mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu1 plus mu2. So if I take mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse common, we are left with mu2 minus half mu1 minus half mu2, correct? So what I have is mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse. I have mu2 minus half mu, so half mu2 minus mu1. Am I right? So it can be written as half minus half mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu1 minus mu2. Okay. So this is again one of the interesting statistics. See, mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu1 minus mu2 is kind of like squared difference between the means because it is occurring twice, scaled by the variance. Okay. So squared difference is kind of like distance, but now we have scaled distance. Okay. So the scaled distance is actually known as squared Mahalanobis distance. Okay. And the notation is delta square. So what we have proved is expectation of uz is minus half delta square if z comes from np mu2 sigma. Okay. So squared Mahalanobis distance is important. This is also known as statistical distance between two populations. Why statistical distance? Because we are not relying simply on the difference between the means. We are taking the variance into consideration. Okay. What about variance of uz? In variance of uz, of course, the constant term is not going to contribute. So it would simply be delta prime sigma delta. It would simply be variance of delta prime x. So this would become mu1 minus mu2 whole prime sigma inverse, sigma as it is, and delta is sigma inverse into mu1 minus mu2. So I am left with mu1 minus mu2 prime sigma inverse mu1 minus mu2. So the variance is simply again delta square, the squared Mahalanobis distance. Okay. So what we have is uz follows univariate normal with mean minus half delta square and variance delta square if z comes from np mu2 sigma. Okay. Now homework is find out distribution of uz. I'm going to write answer because I need it here for further analysis. uz turns out to be this if z comes from np mu1 sigma. Okay. So now we need two types of misclassification probabilities. So first type of misclassification probability is probability of uz being greater than c given that z comes from np mu2 sigma. So this is same as probability of uz plus half delta square p upon delta p being greater than c plus half delta square p upon delta p. I am converting general normal to standard normal. Okay, subtracting mean divided by standard deviation. So this is standard normal random variable. So I can say this is, unfortunately I have already used variable z. So let me say standard normal random variate being greater than c plus half delta square p upon delta p. Okay, so this is 1 minus probability of standard normal random variate being less than or equal to c plus half delta square p upon delta p. So this is 1 minus CDF at c plus half delta square p upon delta p. Okay, this is first type of misclassification probability. Second type of misclassification probability will be uz being less than c given that z follows np mu1 sigma. So this is probability of uz minus half delta square p upon delta p being less than or equal to c minus half delta square p upon delta p. Okay, so this is simply CDF of standard normal at c minus delta square p by 2 upon delta p. We said that we don't want to consider one type of misclassification as more serious. We want both of them to be considered as equally serious. So we equate. So phi c minus half delta square p upon delta p should be equal to 1 minus phi c plus half delta square p upon delta p. Is it okay? Now because of symmetry of normal distribution, we know that 1 minus CDF at certain point is right side probability. So this is same as, this probability is same as CDF of negative of that point. Okay, so this is same as phi minus c minus half delta square p upon delta p. Is it okay? And now that I have phi on both the sides, the CDFs are equal only if the points are equal. So c minus half delta square p upon delta p is same as minus c minus half delta square p upon delta p. So basically only if c is equal to minus c, that is c is equal to 0. Hence my final conclusion is assign z to population 1 if uz is positive and assign it to population 2 if uz is negative. Okay, so this is the linear discriminant rule. Why linear? Now you must have obviously understood, because your discriminant function is a linear function of the new observation, hence the name linear discriminant. So this is the discriminant rule if we assume both misclassification probabilities to be equal. If we want both misclassification probabilities to be equal. Okay. Of course, there is one issue in all this derivation. What if I don't know mu1, mu2, sigma? Like we always do, you replace mu1 by mu1 hat, that is the mean of x, you replace mu2 by mu2 hat, that is mean of y's, and sigma by the pooled estimate. Okay, so Sx plus Sy divided by n1 plus n2, sorry nx I think I have used, I don't know, nx plus ny, where Sx, Sy are respective CSSP matrices. Okay, so you can compute sample Fisher discriminant function by replacing these. You can compute sample squared Mahalanobis distance. Okay, let's stop. Thank you.